The reception hall smelled like lilies and lukewarm coffee. I stood near the dessert table, picking at a cookie I had no intention of eating, watching my family laugh and reminisce about Grandma like they'd actually visited her in the last 5 years. Spoiler alert, they hadn't. My sister Melissa held court near the center of the room, dabbing her eyes with a lace handkerchief she'd probably bought specifically for today. She wore all black, designer black, the kind with subtle labels that whispered wealth. Our mother stood beside her, one hand on Melissa's shoulder like she was presenting a prize at a pageant. I wore the same black dress I'd worn to every funeral for the past decade. It still fit. That felt like the only win I'd had all week. Everyone, my father's voice boomed across the room. He didn't need a microphone. Years of commanding boardrooms had given him a voice that could silence a crowd without effort. If I could have your attention for just a moment. The conversations died down. 45 pairs of eyes turned toward him. My stomach tightened. We've gathered here today to celebrate the life of Margaret Elizabeth Chen, Dad continued, his voice thick with emotion I knew was manufactured. A woman of grace, wisdom, and extraordinary generosity. I set down my cookie. My hands were shaking. As many of you know, Margaret was very close with our family, particularly with our youngest daughter, Melissa. He smiled at my sister, who lowered her eyes modestly. Margaret saw in Melissa the same spirit of kindness and compassion that defined her own life. I felt the first prickle of dread crawl up my spine. Which is why, Dad said, his voice growing stronger, in the spirit of family unity and honoring Margaret's memory, our eldest daughter Jennifer has decided to redirect her portion of the inheritance to Melissa. The room erupted in soft murmurs of approval. I stood frozen, the words hitting me like physical blows. My mother stepped forward, tears glistening in her eyes. Jennifer understands that Melissa needs this support right now. She's trying to start her boutique and Jennifer has her accounting job. It's the right thing to do. The compassionate thing. I watched my sister's face. She wasn't even trying to hide her smile. Every eye in that room turned to me. Waiting. Expecting me to nod, to confirm, to play my role as the dependable, selfless older sister who always put family first. I thought about the last 5 years. Every Sunday I'd driven 3 hours round trip to visit Grandma in her assisted living facility. Every holiday I'd spent at her bedside while my parents vacationed in Cabo and Melissa posted Instagram photos from Bali. Every midnight phone call when Grandma couldn't sleep and just wanted someone to talk to. Every single time I'd asked my family to visit and they'd had excuses. Too busy. Too far. Too tired. My voice came out steady. No. The word dropped into the silence like a stone into still water. My mother's face went from grief-stricken to furious in under a second. Jennifer, this is not the time. I said no. I spoke louder this time. I'm not giving Melissa my inheritance. My father's jaw clenched. Jennifer Marie, we are at your grandmother's funeral. Have some respect. Respect. The laugh that came out of me was sharp. You want to talk about respect at the funeral of a woman you haven't visited in 3 years? Melissa's eyes went wide. Jenny, that's not fair. When was the last time you saw her, Mel? I turned to face my sister fully. When was the last time any of you actually spent time with Grandma? My mother's voice went shrill. How dare you? We loved her. I was there every Sunday, I said. Every single Sunday for 5 years. I held her hand through chemo. I advocated for her when the facility tried to cut her physical therapy. I sat with her when she couldn't remember my name and cried because she was scared. The room had gone completely silent. Where were you? I looked at each of them. Where were any of you? My father's face turned red. This is completely inappropriate. You're making a scene at your grandmother's funeral because you're jealous of your sister. Selfish. My mother's scream cut through the room. You are selfish and cruel. After everything we've done for you, after we raised you, fed you, put you through school, this is how you repay us? By humiliating your family. Tears streamed down Melissa's face. Real ones this time, I thought. Born of anger, not grief. I can't believe you, Jenny. Grandma would be so disappointed in you. That last part cracked something open in my chest. I pulled my purse from the back of my chair. My hands were steady now. Clear purpose had a way of eliminating tremors. I walked across the room toward the corner where Mr. Harrison sat. Gerald Harrison, Grandma's estate attorney. He'd been sitting quietly throughout the entire spectacle, his weathered face expressionless, his leather briefcase resting on the chair beside him. He was 73 years old. He'd been Grandma's lawyer for 40 years. And he'd warned me this might happen. "Mr. Harrison," I said clearly, "I think now would be an appropriate time." He looked up at me and something that might have been approval flickered in his eyes. He stood slowly, his 6'2" frame unfolding with the deliberate care of a man who'd spent decades commanding courtrooms. He picked up his briefcase. The click of the latches opening was the loudest sound in the room. "Ladies and gentlemen," Mr. Harrison's voice was calm, professional, and absolutely unshakable. "My name is Gerald Harrison. I served as Margaret Elizabeth Chen's estate attorney and executor of her will." My mother's face went pale. "This isn't necessary." "I'm afraid it is, Mrs. Chen." He pulled out a document. The blue backing was unmistakable, legal, binding, official. "Given the claims just made regarding the distribution of Mrs. Chen's estate, I believe clarity is required." My father stepped forward. "Now see here. The will is quite clear, Mr. Chen." Harrison's voice didn't rise, but somehow it filled every corner of that room. Margaret Elizabeth Chen was of completely sound mind when this document was drafted, witnessed, and notarized. I have medical documentation to support her mental competency at the time of signing. He adjusted his reading glasses. "To my granddaughter Jennifer Marie Chen," he read, "I leave the entirety of my estate including but not limited to, my home at 247 Willow Creek Lane, valued at approximately $680,000. My investment portfolio, currently valued at $340,000. The contents of my personal savings account, approximately $125,000. And all personal property, jewelry, and household items." You could have heard a pin drop. Harrison continued reading. "To my granddaughter Melissa N. Chen, I leave my pearl earrings and my best wishes for her future." Melissa's face had gone from pink to white to a mottled red. "That's not," she promised me. "There is no promise documented in this will, Ms. Chen." Harrison looked at her over his glasses. "What is documented is a detailed letter explaining Mrs. Chen's reasoning, which I am not required to read publicly but which I will summarize. Margaret Chen left her estate to the granddaughter who demonstrated consistent love, care, and devotion during her final years." My mother grabbed the edge of a table. "This is a mistake." Mother was confused. She had dementia. Mrs. Chen's medical records indicate mild memory impairment but full decision-making capacity until 6 weeks before her death, Harrison said. "This will was executed 14 months ago, well within the period of her documented competency. I have 3 doctors willing to testify to this fact should anyone wish to contest." The room erupted. Voices overlapped. Shock, outrage, uncomfortable laughter from distant cousins who'd never liked my parents anyway. My father's voice cut through the chaos. "Jennifer, we need to talk about this privately." "No," I said. "We don't. You can't do this to your sister." Melissa's voice had gone high and desperate. "I need that money. I have plans." "Plans you made with money that was never yours," I said quietly. My mother's face twisted. "After everything we've sacrificed for you." "You sacrificed nothing." The words came out harder than I intended. "I put myself through college. I paid for my own car. I've been financially independent since I was 22 years old." I turned to face the room. All 45 mourners watching this family implode in real time. "And for the record," I added, "I've been sending my parents $2,000 a month for the last 3 years to help with their mortgage. Money they told me they desperately needed. Money they apparently used to fund Melissa's boutique dreams and European vacations." My father's face went purple. "You have no right." "I have every right." I looked at Mr. Harrison. "The will is valid." "Completely." He closed his briefcase with a definitive click. "I'll be in touch regarding the formal reading and transfer of assets. Miss Chen, my condolences on your loss. Your grandmother spoke of you with great love." My eyes burned but I refused to cry. "Not here. Not in front of them." I picked up my purse and walked toward the exit. Behind me my mother's voice rose in a wail. "You're destroying this family." I stopped at the door and turned back one last time. "No, Mom," I said. "I'm just refusing to set myself on fire to keep you warm anymore." The cool autumn air hit my face as I stepped outside. My car was parked 3 rows back. My hands shook as I unlocked it, slid into the driver's seat and finally, let myself cry. Not from sadness. Not from anger. From relief. My phone buzzed. A text from Mr. Harrison. Well done. Your grandmother would be proud. My office, Tuesday at 10 a.m. to begin probate proceedings. I leaned my head against the steering wheel and laughed through my tears. Grandma had known. She'd known exactly what would happen. She'd known they'd demand, manipulate, and guilt me into surrendering what she'd left me. And she'd made absolutely certain they couldn't take it. I started my car and drove away from that funeral hall, away from my family's shocked faces and entitled fury. For the first time in 5 years I felt free.